Hello YouTube, Dave here again. So 5th edition obviously is out. I've made videos for it, I've been able to test it. My opinions of it are all pretty good, but before it came out I was starting a series of videos about what I expected from 5th edition and things I would like to see. The first one I did was on campaign settings, which I kind of, I made my opinions known of that. I think I was wrong about Greyhawk, but I already addressed that, so hopefully we'll get to see that again. This week's video, I want to talk about the additional material that's going to come out after the core books come out. So after this initial wave of releases, how I want Wizards of the Coast to handle all the supplementary material. So that's the topic of discussion for this week's video. So this is basically what I don't want to see. These are the books that were released as supplementary material for 3.0 and 3.5 that I actually ended up buying. I didn't get a lot for 3.0. Most of the stuff here is pretty basic. But they did release a ton of stuff, and I just wasn't really into buying at that point in time. But with 3.5, it just exploded, and they were releasing just way too many books, way too many different things, and it became a lot more difficult to keep up with. I mean, some months they were releasing 3 hardcover books a month, and one or two of them would be like these supplements, and one would be for a campaign setting, which I already talked about how I want the campaign settings held. And basically, as you can see, I actually ran out of room on my table, so I just kind of stacked the last few that I ended up getting all together there. So basically, this is not something that I want to really see, especially books like, the ones for the classes like Complete Warrior, Complete Divine, Arcane, stuff like that. Those are books that I actually avoided buying for 4th edition. So there was like Arcane Power, Martial Power, and those are books I just didn't get because I wasn't interested in having, that kind of material. It goes a long way to unbalancing the game, just because you start creating a lot of combinations of things that, the original game wasn't meant to handle. So it can be difficult that way, and it's just expensive. I mean, the prices of the books are already higher than they normally were in previous years, so I'm not really looking forward to something like this. Quite frankly, I don't have the money at this point in time to collect these kinds of books anymore. I mean, when I got most of these, I was still living at home and wasn't paying too much. It was only a little bit for rent, and that was it. But of these types of books, so like I said, I don't want to see any of the class books. I think the classes work well enough as they are. They don't really need to be expanded upon too much. I know they're going to release some books with some extra backgrounds and maybe some extra spells and stuff like that, which is fine, as long as they kind of limit how much stuff that they do. They really don't need to go overboard, and I'm hoping that they don't in this case, because people will buy more of your books if you produce fewer of them, at least in my opinion. So, one book a month would be a lot easier to deal with. They're going to do things like extra monster manuals, which again I guess will be fine, because you want monsters to play, or to fight against, I should say. And a planar handbook would be great, so stuff like that would be fine. Do they really need stuff for, At Seas, or there was 2 books, Sandstorm and Frostburn, which I didn't get. And they were for, running campaigns set in, arid settings like a desert, or Arctic settings and stuff like that. And it's like, I really didn't need to dedicate a full book to that. And those are one of the few books that I didn't get for 3.5. Again, they don't need to overload the classes. I think the classes are fine as they are. If they want to introduce a few more, that's fine, as long as they, don't go overboard with it. Now, books that I do kind of want to see for supplements would be stuff like the Draconomicon, which was great. Then I have underneath here Libris Mortis, the Book of the Undead. This one was actually kind of terrible, the 3rd edition one. There was a 4th edition one which was pretty good. But, monster books that kind of go a lot into flavor, like Lords of Madness did, Hordes of the Abyss, Tyrants of the Nine Hells, Drow of the Underdark, stuff like that I think is going to be great. So, I kind of look forward to those supplements, just not things that are overloading the players with options that create situations where the game gets unbalanced or broken because there's just too many combinations of things. And that's, it's definitely, I think, happened in 3.5. It got to the point towards the end when I was running it that I really just wanted to focus on the core books. I was tired of having to lug out a ton of these things for all the players to have. So I'd like to see a bit more subtle approach to their releases. Maybe one book a month would be great, but they certainly don't need to overload with things like they did with sort of near the end or middle of the end of 3.5, like the different types of magic systems and stuff like that. So I'd like to see maybe more just adventures to start off with, and anything that's going to be rules intensive, I'd like to see very, very reduced releases. So like I said, these are just the ones for 3rd edition of 3.5 that I got. There was a lot of 3.0 stuff that I never bothered with picking up. So this is not something that I want to see personally. Now, this is just my opinion. I know everybody else has their own, and there's some people who love buying tons of these books. So that's certainly up to you. When I finally did start buying the 4th edition books, I was a lot more reserved in what I got. I still ended up buying a fair amount of books, but I definitely wasn't really interested in stuff, especially like these things here, which are just loaded with stuff like feats and prestige classes and things of that nature that they had in 3rd edition that I just really don't want to see. So kind of keep it more about the flavor, maybe focus more on settings. Have some great adventures, have some great monster books, but I really want to see them kind of avoid the books for making the player characters, more powerful, or giving them more options than was maybe initially part of the design. So just do a few books, maybe do 1 or 2 a year that have some new classes and stuff like that, and races and things of that nature. But I definitely don't want to see this kind of release occurring, because quite frankly I'm just not going to do it. I'm going to be very picky with what books I do end up getting for 5th edition, so if they start releasing like this, then I'll probably just stick to the core books and leave it at that. So anyway, that's kind of how I want them to handle the supplements. Leave comments below what your thoughts and feelings are, if you want to see something more like this where there's tons of options, or if you'd rather have a more stripped down and simplified approach. Do you want them to publish a bunch of adventures? Is that something that might be of interest to you? Or what about alternate systems? Are you looking forward to stuff like psionics, possibly the return of Incarnum, things like that? Is there anything like that you might be looking forward to for 5th edition? So leave your comments. Follow me on Twitter. The link for the Twitter is going to be below in the description. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just kind of a quick one. Just wanted to get this off my chest and see, kind of get a feel for what everybody else is thinking. Like I said, me personally, not looking to fill up another entire bookshelf with books that I'm never going to use. So, like I said, I hope they take a little easy on this one. So, anyway, that was my video for this week. Next week, I'm going to talk about how I want them to handle the rules for 5th edition. And when I say the rules, I don't mean what mechanics I want to see, but how they handle the structure of the rules itself and the way that they play. So that'll be next week's video. So thank you very much for watching, YouTube.